Welcome to the Kill the Lion podcast. It's me, Cody Clarke. We got a great show for you today. John Otis is here, filmmaker, friend of mine, made a great movie, Caramel Sugar Moxie, that you can watch for free on YouTube. He made it a number of years ago, but it's just as fresh as the day he made it, if not more relevant. If you like this show, by the way, KillTheLionFilms.com, $2 per month. That's all we ask. It keeps us afloat here at the podcast, and it keeps us making great movies that we pretty much just release for free. So anything you can do to help us is great, and we only ask $2. And now, John Otis. All right, John, good to talk to you.
Thank you for having me, Cody. I love this podcast, and it feels really I don't know what to say, like being amongst the people from your podcast. There's a lot of great names, and just being amongst them is an honor. So thank you, Cody.
Well, thank you for being on the show. I've been a fan of your work for a while, and of course we're friends too, but I'm a big fan of Caramel Sugar Moxie. I think it's a wonderful film. What year did you make that again?
That was shot in 2006, and I released it in 2007. It's gone through a few different iterations since then, because when we premiered it, we ended up editing it after. And the 2013 version that we put up on YouTube is the one that you saw, and that's the superior version. So yeah, that's kind of the tale of the film there.
Well, it really captures the early 2000s extremely well, to the point that it's, beyond it being a good story and the performances being engaging and all that, it's a bit of a document. I can watch that, and I just remember the aesthetic of that time period so clearly through that as like a prompt. It just kind of jogs my memory, and I feel like that wasn't a time period that was captured particularly well. There isn't that much media that really goes into the idea of even capturing that time period. Like some of the most successful movies from that time period, Superbad or whatever, they're kind of just doing their own thing, whereas your film was just really really close to what that vibe was like, particularly, I mean, I guess in Canada, of course, but in the States as well.
Yeah. The thing about the time period, like we weren't even thinking of this being a timepiece really, but when you said that, when I first showed it to you, I was like, you know what, this is actually kind of a revelation of sorts for me, because that wasn't something we intended to do. We were just making our film and just writing it, what was inspiring to us at the time. And I kind of like how you encapsulated it like that, as kind of a timepiece or of sorts.
Yeah, it really like could go into a time capsule. Like if people were putting something together to kind of explain the vibe of that time, it could go straight into a time capsule into the ground and just be dug up. And I think people would understand, the personalities, the fashions, the energy. And also, I really like the story, because I like these kinds of stories. Like I like not necessarily antagonists, just kind of a protagonist going through some shit, and what they're struggling with isn't, life or death in like a, very, Avengers-esque way, but just the kind of day-to-day stuff anybody would go through, the struggles in that regard. I kind of, if I were to describe the plot, I'm gonna try to do it without spoiling. It's about a girl who goes through a traumatic injury, or rather repeated injuries. It's not really clear. And she also is doing some questionable things in her life. And it's just about her trying to get along with the people around her and get through life in dealing with the wake of those kind of two events. Something that happened to her, and also something that she kind of chose to do. But those two things are kind of intertwined in a certain way.
That's a good summary. And it's actually based off of someone that I knew at the time who didn't end up doing what the protagonist or the lead character did in the movie. But she did have multiple concussions, and the literal line of her saying her brain is deteriorating was actually taken from someone who had multiple concussions that was a friend of mine. So that was kind of drawn from real life. And then so I was thinking, okay, how does this film continue from here? We have this person who is kind of destructive in a way, but doesn't really feel like it because she's young and she has lots of vibrancy, and she's just trying to live her life, with her friends and social circle. But that leads her to having a week off of school, where she's kind of just trying to get back on her feet after her most recent injury and getting social again, even against her mother's wishes. So, and obviously it leads to where it leads, in a way that was inevitable in a sense, just because of her notoriety and her social circles that she resides in.
That line that you described where she talks about her brain deteriorating is one of my favorite moments in the film. I think I've probably referenced it a million times in DMs and stuff between us. I just love, because basically she mispronounces the word deteriorating, and in her performance just perfectly captures like the innocence of somebody going through something that's just so far beyond what they could ever comprehend is happening to them, which is relatable because it is kind of like the unknown. Like the brain is the unknown for us all. So we just kind of feel for her in that moment, and it happening to this teenage girl is just so heartbreaking, but also just you can't help but be endeared by her kind of oddly happy-go-lucky approach to what's going on with her.
Yeah.
It's also, oddly relevant in that way too, because obviously traumatic brain injuries and repeated concussions has been something that's been really focused on in the last 10 years or so. Whereas when you guys were making it, it wasn't really in the forefront as far as like what we were talking about. But now, of course, we understand how much can change in a person because of these concussions, whether you're an athlete or whatever, you can really, your entire personality can change. You could do things that are unthinkable. It's something, I feel like the movie is relevant on so many levels, and it just kind of needed some time and needed some years to really, for the world to kind of catch up to the wavelength that you guys were on.
Well, those are really flattering words. Thanks. Thank you, Cody. It really was. And like I said, you saying it's a time capsule kind of ringing true to me now, in that also it was the beginning of social media and cell phone addiction. And at the time, I was living around, I was 20 at the time, or 22 at the time when I filmed that. And I was kind of seeing the reliance on social media and what it was doing to people and how that plays a role in the film as well, and the cell phone connections too. And at the time, everyone was just using, flip phones. I don't even think the first iPhone was out at the time, but maybe it was. But I wanted to incorporate that into the film as well, and really show that and focus that on kind of the youth being addicted to it and everything.
Yeah, it has that early internet feel as well, pre social media. So you're hitting on all fronts as far as like this movie, going into the Library of Congress as far as like a important film or whatever. You got the CTEs, you got the time period, you got the pre-social media, you got all these aspects, and on top of it, it's just a very engaging film. So this came across my radar because you kind of were like thinking like, oh man, should I send him my movie? Should I not?
Yeah.
And then you finally you're like, all right, I'll just send it to him. If he doesn't like it, whatever. I ended up loving it. What was that moment before you kind of share your work? Because it is a vulnerable thing. Everybody's gone through it where you're friends with somebody and you're like, all right, are they going to like my stuff? Like, what's this going to be like? What made you decide to just be like, all right, I'll send it. I'll bite the bullet.
Well, I had been following you for, I think maybe even a year prior, but I hadn't really started paying attention to your Twitter until like the COVID lockdown started, and then you made Blurry Finger, which was really inspiring to me. and then you started work immediately on Ramekin, and you were just turning things out. And I was just really inspired by your work and your work ethic and making it happen. And I was like, there was one time where I had this like fire in me to do this and to be what you are, and this is what came of it. Was Caramel Sugar Moxie, my second film, and I made a film 2 years prior to that as well. So Caramel Sugar Moxie is my second feature film. But I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll send it to him. It seems like it could potentially be up his alley, because of how independent it is and how he's always, talking about how truly independent films need to be seen more, need to be made more. So I just took the leap from there, and I was like, okay, I got to send it to him, and then I did, and then I was just so elated by your reaction to it. In fact, it was, yeah, that was one of the best reactions I've had to Caramel Sugar Moxie ever. So
Yeah, I champion it every chance I get because it's still kind of underseen on YouTube. I think I'm the only comment on it currently, which is just absurd.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that too. I feel like you should probably lock comments after that. Just grandfather me in, and just who cares what anybody else thinks.
I'll just pin yours, and then
Please do.
Lock comments, because I think if you lock comments, it just shows no comments. So
okay. We'll figure out a way
maybe
to
I
do
pin
it.
it or something.
Yeah, just pin it. Just I want people to know that I was there.
Exactly.
I made my mark, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's criminally underseen. It's probably got 1 or 2 reviews on Letterboxd. It's one of those things.
Yeah, you and Dan Lotz reviewed it, and I was just very, I was flattered for that too. I'm always flattered when people, watch my stuff and take in my stuff, but it's been so long since I've done my own creative work. Like, I haven't done anything like Caramel Sugar Moxie since 2006, 2007. So it's been a long time coming. I've been doing lots of work of other projects and with other people doing different sort of things in film and music and stuff, but nothing since then have I ever done. Until now, I'm actually getting the ball rolling on my next feature, which I can't say too much about, obviously, because I'm just writing the script right now, and I just got the budget, and I actually just secured a couple cameras that are on the way. So things are in motion to actually come out with my first feature film, which will not be co-directed, because Caramel Sugar Moxie, I had a partner. We co-directed, we co-wrote, we co-edited, we did the whole thing like front to back, me and him. His name is Daryl James. He's also a really good musical artist. That he's a genius musical artist, by the way. And I'm going to use him for my next film, most definitely, to compose some things. But
one of his tracks is in Ramekin too.
Yes.
Which you remixed, I believe.
Which, I did the remix for the track, yes. Which is why I wanted to send it to you when you were asking for music for the soundtrack. I was like, okay, I have this song that I remixed from this band from my best friend who I worked on Caramel Sugar Moxie with. So that was awesome that you included it.
Yeah, it worked perfectly. I love that remix. It really, I mean, the original track is great too, but it just kind of like balloons it to these epic proportions, and it worked so well for the moment that I chose it for
Yeah, it was
too.
that was a great moment.
Yeah. So talk to me a bit about co-directing, because I believe you're credited as the Blessed Undead together on Caramel Sugar Moxie. How did that name even come out? Because that could be a movie in and of itself, the Blessed Undead.
The name came out just because I loved zombies, like zombie films at the time, and I still do. Just because when I was younger, like teenage years, discovering a lot of zombie films.
Wouldn't you want to see the Blessed Undead, some like kind of church zombie horror movie?
Yeah, that actually sounds awesome. But the term blessed even comes in just because I am Christian. So I connected the director title, The Blessed Undead, of Me and Him, to a verse in the Bible. And I actually forget the verse now, so I don't even recall what the verse was, but at the time it seemed really profound to me. So it's like, okay, this is what we're going to call ourselves. Both of us have unconventional last names that aren't really poetic, so that's what we went with at the time.
And so, how did the duties split up? Like when you watched a movie, can you see the kind of stuff that you brought and the kind of stuff that he brought? Like, is it clear as a bell, or does it just kind of mesh together?
Being so long since we've actually since we actually filmed together, kind of blurs things now. But a lot of like the story elements and the actual camera work was myself, and he was always a great how do I say, confirmer of a lot of my decision making, because he was the reason why I got into film in the first place. Like way back in high school, he showed me Punch Drunk Love for the first time, and I was one of those kids that would say I don't like movies. I don't know how many kids say that, but for me, it was just like when I was growing up, they didn't offer me anything. Of course, all I was served up was these like Hollywood, studio type stuff, and I didn't really care to look beyond it when I was a kid or, in my teens. But he has an eye for cinema like no other. So I was like, me and him have to do this together. And yeah, I have the more creative side in terms of the writing and the filmmaking aspect, like where to put the camera. But him being there, he would shoot scenes, he would direct scenes on his own, and I would man the audio, and then we would switch off and on. So it was a lot of that going on, but it really was a partnership that I'm gonna miss going into my next film like all on my lonesome. But having him there was very, very beneficial to the outcomes of both the films we made. And actually later on we did a music video together, and it's one of my favorite works that we did. And I had never had that freedom before, because he even provided, it was his music video for his band, and he provided like the budget for it. And it was like, I had never experienced that before. Someone else footing a budget for their art, but then wanting me to film it and edit it and come up with a story for it. So yeah, I'm grateful for him and our partnership in our first two films, because without him I wouldn't even be here.
That's beautiful. So what were you guys watching right before you made that movie? Because it kind of fits in with a lot of the mumblecore stuff, like Bujalski or Swanberg or Frank V. Ross or any of that early stuff. Was that something you were aware of at the time and watching, or was that just kind of like, coincidentally everybody was kind of similarly thinking about shooting movies on DV and having them feel a little bit more real? What was the inspiration as far as that?
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't even know what mumblecore was until I heard you mention it. Maybe it was in a tweet or a DM at some time, but at the time his favorite filmmaker at the time was Paul Thomas Anderson. Mine at the time was Darren Aronofsky, and I loved Requiem for a Dream. He loved Magnolia. But we expanded from that to Gummo with Harmony Korine, Werner Herzog, Ingmar Bergman. We were taking in a lot of stuff, because at the time I was working at a movie theater that had a art series, which is pretty rare in my city. We're not a big city, but we're not a small city, but we're not big enough to attract foreign movies and other types of independent film. But I was lucky enough to work in a movie theater that actually had an art series. So every week a new foreign film would come out, or a new independent film would come out, and we would get to see them. So I mean, you live in New York City, so you practically get to see whatever you want almost if you have the means to travel wherever you need to go. But yeah, it was kind of a really magical time in my creativity as a young man, like coming into my own, graduating high school, and finding myself through film that I hadn't even had a love previous to when I was 18. And then when Daryl, my partner, was like showing me these films, so it kind of just blossomed from there. We tried to see whatever we could, but we were limited to what was just playing around us and what we could get from the rental stores around us, which didn't really carry much because there isn't that much distributed into my city, which I live in London, Ontario, in Canada, and ordering off the internet wasn't the biggest thing at the time, so we never really did that. But we may do.
I was researching yesterday to try and figure out like what the biggest movie theater in the world was, because I realized like I didn't know where it was, what it was, how many screens, and also like what's the biggest movie theater screen in the world, etc. A lot of it seems to be like India and stuff, but I recently discovered that in Canada you have the most screens in a multiplex. There's a multiplex in Canada that has like 30 or 35 screens on it. So,
wow, interesting.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
have you been there? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Definitely
I'm trying
not.
to I'm furiously googling it right now, trying to remember exactly where it is. I want to say it's on Ontario or something, but
I'm gonna say maybe it's got to be in Toronto, maybe
Yeah.
Montreal, maybe Vancouver.
well, I knew it the other day. I don't know it offhand right now, but I find that interesting that it has you in Canada have the most multiplex screen multiplex ever, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's that would be a little overwhelming, but a lot of choice. But although now, when a movie comes out, they would just throw it in 10 of the theaters, so
Exactly.
10 of the screens would just be taken up by whatever the new.
Yeah, I would love a multiplex that if they have 30 screens, they're playing 30 different movies all
Yeah, that
day
would be
long.
awesome.
That would be
I
beautiful.
would love that.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to ask you about kind of what you're doing to kind of give new life visually to Caramel Sugar Moxie, and also what you've been playing with in general with AI as far as like upscaling old DV footage, because you've been doing some incredible tests. Nothing the listeners at home can see, but you DM me like clips and stuff, and it kind of blows my mind what you can do with old DV footage nowadays with AI upscaling.
Yes, so with Caramel Sugar Moxie, I am in the process of upresing it and turning it HD because we shot it on a Canon XL2, which is a mini DV, so it shoots in like 480 by 720p. So I want that HD. As for how I'm doing it, well, currently I'm still working on the audio. It's taken me a long time, but there's my life is being pulled in so many different directions right now. Some of them I can't even say just because of how my family has been affected recently by some tragedies. So I'll just leave that at that. But I am currently fixing audio on it for Caramel Sugar Moxie. I'm going to upres it and I'm going to de-interlace it, which I use Topaz AI, and that does a phenomenal job of de-interlacing. I mean, I tried actually de-interlacing it in Final Cut Pro 7, which is what I used to use, but it actually doesn't work that well with de-interlacing. There's still some left behind, but Topaz works really well. And as for how I want it to look, like basically there's a compression that comes with all this digital stuff. So there's a way you can remove compression entities. There's a way you can remove noise, and constantly doing that and testing the different levels of, okay, I want this much noise removed. I want this much compression artifact removed. I want to sharpen it just a little. A lot of times the sharpening can ruin something when you're upresing it to AI, and sometimes I won't even put something like that out because it just looks very unnatural, and I wouldn't want to put something out like that with the way it sharpens it sometimes. But there's still a lot of bugs in it that they're actually constantly updating, and it's almost annoying in a way because they have a new update almost daily for the software, and I have to keep renewing it. And when I do, like, sure, it's like fixing things, but it's mainly things that in my mind, like I wasn't really afflicted with previously. So it's kind of strange soft. I'm not really doing anything else with AI other than the Topaz, like upresing and fixing stuff, and maybe even like working on some old skateboarding footage that I have. I showed you some old footage of a short film I did, and I'm actually going to redo that one because there are some glitches in it that I notice, and I'm hoping that the new upgrades fix the glitches. The actual short film is called December 6, 2008, and it's based on a snowfall that happened that day. That was one of the biggest snowfalls of that I've ever lived through. And I live in Canada, so there's lots of big snowfalls. But this one in particular was like 3 feet of snow in a single night. So I just went out and I was like, I have to film this. This is like so cinematic. And I just took my camera out in the middle of the night, and for hours and hours, I just filmed everything I could find. Like I found a salt truck that was just stuck in the snow, other people just stranded in the snow, and one gentleman in particular who was in the middle of the night shoveling his driveway. And he was a very interesting individual, and he was wondering why I was carrying a camera around. So I just kind of put it on him, and he told his little story. But yeah, I'm up-resing that, and I want to release that soon. Again, because I have released it previously on YouTube, but it's in like 280p because I uploaded it in 2006. So or whatever the horrible 360p, whatever the horrible uploads they had back then. That's kind of like where it sits right now. And I just want to renew some old stuff as well as create newer stuff when I get my new cameras. And then I'll have like a nice library of things I can put on a new YouTube that I can start building on.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible because we're basically at the forefront of all this. This is all stuff that's, like you said, they're constantly tinkering with it. But the stuff that you can do right now is just pretty insane to think about, because basically it means you're never limited by the camera that you use anymore as far as resolution. You know, because there are reasons why, you know, these older cameras are great. You know, they have a better lens usually. They they have a nice zoom on them. The colors can be a little bit more palatable. There's reasons why people would want to use these older cameras, but then there are, like with anything else, there's always downsides as well, which is, you know, if you want to do it tapeless, if you want to record to a hard drive, you need to carry around something that it plugs into. Like there's different things you can do that honestly skateboarders have figured out more than filmmakers lately, because they're the ones that really care about a lot of these older cameras.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I just love the idea of a future where, you know, you can make a movie that's 4K on a camera that's like 480p, and nobody's even going to know. They're just going to know that, like, oh wow, that the global shutter, you know, makes all the motion look better, and you can do these great zooms and etc. And the color looks nice and whatever. Like I just like the idea of a future where no matter what you have, you can unlock so much potential from. And it seems like Topaz kind of sees the same possibility and wants that future as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that. That jogged my memory of something that I'm doing with Caramel Sugar Moxie, and what Topaz can do. It can add frames between frames in an optical flow kind of way, but even better. So what I mean by that is, for Caramel Sugar Moxie, there's one sequence that I shot. I mean, we shot the whole film in 24 frames. Actually, we had two different cameras. We did have a Sony VX2 shooting it. That only shot 30p though. That didn't shoot 24. So it's kind of a mishmash of cameras that we couldn't really match, which kind of sucks. But that being said, there was one scene that was shot in the candy store, and afterwards, what I call like the business shot, when it's just a straight on long lens zoom shot of just three people walking towards the camera. I slow mode that shot, but when you slow mo 24 frames, it looks really bad. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put it into Topaz and create a frame rate of that will increase the amount of frames, so that when it slows down, it will be like a perfect slow-mo shot. And unless it doesn't work, I'm not going to include it. But if it looks fine, if it passes my visual test, I'm going to create that. And that's something crazy, like how you can shoot something in 24 frames, but then up it to 120. I probably won't go that high. I'll probably just go like 60. But then when I put it into 50 frames per sec, or when I put it into 50% speed, then it'll actually look smooth and it won't be jittery. And yeah, it'll look a lot better.
Yeah, it kind of makes me excited for a future where, certain movies that maybe the only print still in existence is some VHS tape or something, could be given new life and resurrected through AI. I feel like that's one of the positive things AI can bring us. Obviously, there's so many negatives, but I really do think that upscaling technology and kind of repair as far as lost media is concerned, or earlier formats, I think that could be a really interesting thing that it could bring us, and that's what I'm most excited about. I'm excited about things where you can kind of resurrect things through AI.
Yes, definitely valuable, very valuable. There is a YouTube page that I watch frequently. They're doing it right now by taking all the early like 2000 skate videos and doing exactly what you're saying. And I know you mentioned that if I were to do that on Twitter or on YouTube, it would be very valuable, and it would be something that people would value. But there's already people doing it better than me at a higher rate than me. So I'm like, oh man, okay, these guys are already doing that. Even though I have all these skate videos and early VHS and skate DVDs that I could do that for.
Well, I'm glad it's not just us. I'm glad it's a lot of people, because it means that the technology is just going to get better faster. Which is, it's just a really exciting time. I'm excited for that for sure. So you mentioned you're working on your first solo feature. Do you have a plan as to when you want to start shooting? How far in the process are you?
I would say I'm 2% into pre-production. So what I want to do is have it filmed next summer. I was hoping to have it done this summer, but my mother passed away a few years ago, and we've been in a battle trying to get our inheritance out of the clutches of the government by working with like tax entities and the government in the country. And it's just been such a hard time to like finally get what what as kids of our mother, like what she allotted to us. And I finally got it. I was hoping to have gotten it a year ago, but now I have it. And now the plan is for next year to have my film filmed, because I want it done in the summer. I want it shot in the summer, because a winter film would be a totally different film and vibe for what I'm writing right now. So that wouldn't be. I could potentially do it in the spring next year as well, depending how fast I write this script. But things are coming together now, and I'm just grateful that finally it is.
Would you ever want to do, some other project? Maybe you shoot it in a day or a weekend or something that's less dear to you, but maybe you like the premise of the idea of just kind of, to get back on that bicycle a little bit or whatever. Because you of course know that sometimes I'll do that, between projects, or other filmmaker friends of mine will do that. You just kind of crap something out. Is that something that you're attracted to, or would you rather kind of save yourself for, a project that you really truly care about and would want to work towards over a course of years?
It is something that I would care about. And here's the thing, like when I get my cameras, I'm going to be filming with them as much as possible, learning my way around them. It's kind of a new era for me. Like I've had these HD cameras from like 2010, just these camcorders, and they haven't really carried over. They haven't carried through. Like I've shot a local cable like TV comedy sketch show with them. I've shot some music videos with them, but they just don't do what I want them to do. And so that's why I don't want to use those. I never liked the outcomes of what I've done with them. In terms of what I've made, like I feel like I've made good stuff with them, but I've never been fully the word's escaping me. I've never been fully satisfied. That's it, with the outcomes of those cameras. And even previous to that, the only cameras I had were 480p, mini DV cameras. But I want to learn my way around these cameras. I want to shoot projects. I want to shoot people. I want to shoot small ideas, potentially a bigger idea in the meantime. But I do really want to hit the ground running when I get these cameras in, and yeah, there'll be a flood of content coming out of me when that happens.
I'm glad to hear that. It was kind of a loaded question because that was obviously what I was rooting for. But that's really cool because obviously practice makes perfect, and I always feel like people should practice in plain sight in kind of like hidden ways. Like I'll come out with a YouTube video and nobody but me knows that I'm doing kind of an audio test or I'm doing a lens test or something. They're just watching some piece of whatever, but I'm getting practice and I'm figuring it out just because it's more fun than like, throwing up some test footage on Vimeo or something and like you see it and a friend sees it or something.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Okay, I have to admit, like this whole new revival too was inspired by you and by Blurry Finger, Attack of the Blurry Finger specifically. Because when I was going through, the pandemic and the lockdowns, and then seeing that you're still making films on an iPhone 6, was it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and I had an iPhone 6 at the time, and I was just like, this man is just showing you what you can do with as little as possible, and putting it out there, and it's valuable. It's art. It works. It was actually really eye-opening to see that happening again. I had been far away from like the creative independent film space for a while. So seeing that and really did truly inspire me. So that's where my idea for what I would want to film, the wheel started turning. Like, what could I do with the budget that I could potentially have? And yeah, so thank you, Cody.
Yeah, Blurry Finger was a very hard movie to make. It's shot on an iPhone, but more cuts and more intricate stuff that I had to do than any other movie, which is funny because I feel like I learned a lot about what goes into a B movie or a monster movie or anything like that through making that movie. I have so much more appreciation for, even the dumbest stuff. Just because if I can see a lot of cuts and I can see a lot of stuff that had to be figured out, you just can't poo-poo any of that stuff based off like story or lack thereof. Like on a technical level, I'm just more impressed by that stuff since making that movie because on a technical level, Blurry Finger was fucking hard. Like it was, I started it, thinking, oh, it'll just be some fun, silly thing. But once you're like choreographing action sequences after action sequences after action sequences, it is a nightmare. And then editing it all together and getting it to really kind of have that great rhythm. It's just it was a very difficult movie.
And listening to the commentary, of you telling, the logistics of having to have your finger in front of the camera while you're filming, and then having to, show to Chloe like this is when you react, that seems very the concept seems like you said easy in the beginning or something fun to do, let's do this project, and then when you're in the weeds of it, I can see how logistically that would be very, very difficult.
Yeah, for those at home, I was basically puppeteering my finger in front of the camera, watching myself puppeteering it, directing Chloe, who of course could not see what the frame looked like, so she's acting with nothing the entire movie. She's never interacting with anything. It's all just a camera trick. It was just, and there are sequences. There are so many different shots that we're just cutting between. It was just, I've never had to use my brain so much as far as directing goes. Usually, like when I'm directing, I can just go by my heart or what I'm feeling or my gut. But this was just so technical and so glad. Like I'm glad it's invisible to a lot of people to watch it because it means that I did my job. But yeah, that was a nightmare in the best possible way because I'm so proud of the movie. But it just kind of it's doing stuff on a tightrope and no net, and it's just kind of it gets a little crazy there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So what kind of stuff do you like now? Like what kind of movies have you been inspired by? Not just my own, but in general, as far as the landscape of film, what excites you? What filmmakers do you still go out and see and still pay attention to? Obviously, Paul Thomas Anderson is still cranking them out and doing them just as well as he always has. But who are your guys?
That's I can't even really pin it down. Honestly, I'm not really looking around at modern stuff and enjoying much of what's out there. It's hard. I do take your recommendations to heart too. So, I mean, I watched Backstage recently. I purchased that and got a good copy of that. That was a really good film.
I'm glad you checked that out. Yeah, that was one I kind of pegged that you might like, and I'm glad I was right.
Yes, it was like it was one of the best openings to a movie I had ever seen. It was just enthralling, and the premise behind it of just some random teenager winning this contest where her favorite pop artist comes and sings a ballad for her on live television, and then her response to it was obviously tragically not television worthy. It was the opposite of what they wanted, but then she kind of wanted to get that feeling again by befriending the pop star, the singer, the musician, and I don't know, that story was just really well done. So Backstage, that was a really good movie.
Yeah, the film we're talking about, by the way, if you guys want to look it up at home, it came out in 2005. It's a French film. It's directed by Emmanuel Bercot. Wonderful film. I haven't seen that director's other stuff yet. I keep meaning to, and I forget to, but I will check out her other stuff as well. But Backstage is phenomenal. That was one I just kind of stumbled on at a used DVD store, and it just kind of seemed cool. And I got it for like $2, and I was like, all right, I'll try it. And I was just blown away. It's just some of the best dramatic filmmaking tied to kind of just a real awkwardness that it is so up my alley, and I just really enjoyed that one. I think a lot of filmmakers would like that one as well.
Yeah. And then you also recommended to me The Florida Project, which I love. And you recommended it to me because I mentioned on Twitter that I grew up in a motel. So you're like, oh, you got to see this film. So that was really funny, but the film was really good.
I mean, I kind of would just want to like use you as like, is this accurate? Is this a good movie? Like, even if you've done it in your own life, like, but you seem to like it.
Yeah, the film was amazing. It was one of the best like directed films of kids that I've ever seen, like kids in that environment. Just how you could tell there wasn't really a script, but there were plot points that had to be met, but they just let the cameras roll and let the kids be kids. And obviously it's another tragic movie. I like tragic movies. I like tragedies. That's what I make. That's what I want to make. I will probably deviate from that, at some point, but I do feel like there's a void in film for real tragedies, real like nuanced, human, emotional, complex adult films that end in tragic ways. And I feel like there's lots of lessons to be learned when you're watching someone's slice of life tragically, and what mistakes they've made, and kind of just not even being fully understanding, because I don't like it when I'm smarter than the movie. I like it when the movie confuses me because people are confusing. So that's what I like best, when there's just this human nature on screen, and human nature is always confusing, always emotionally in every direction and not making sense, but making sense in a human nature way, and then leading to a tragedy that could have been avoided. I feel like I gain a lot from that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I want to make.
Yeah, I love and respect great tragedy when I see it. I'm like you in that regard. And it's funny because even great directors can kind of undercut any kind of tragedy they imbue into their work, especially like I would say like Scorsese. He kind of like always finds some way to undercut whatever his most tragic climactic moment is. Like in The Departed, like the final shot of that movie is just a joke. Like, I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but it's just a stupid joke, and I think it's one of the worst final shots I've ever seen. But there's moments of tragedy leading up to it that you just kind of forget. And also his movie Casino, which it's whatever. There's things I like about it, things I don't. I wouldn't consider it one of his best works, but there's a very tragic and fucked up climax to that movie involving a cornfield, and it's so good. It's like the first time the movie like wakes up. Like it's a 3-hour movie, and at 2 hours 45, the movie's like, all right, we're a movie now.
Yeah.
But it's so tragic and so like not what you're ready for and great. But then it kind of just gets undercut. Like I feel like he kind of backs off, whether it's Taxi Driver, whether it's King of Comedy. There's always kind of like a sardonic twist or something that kind of just undercuts what just came before, and it's unneeded. And I have so much respect for filmmakers that just go tragedy all the way. Like, all right, yeah, the tragic moment is where we're going to end this, and we're going to leave you in your seat kind of feeling the weight of it, rather than backing off and be like, oh no, it's okay, I was just joking, it's fine, whatever. It just goes to show you some of the best directors can still be beholden to probably that wrong impulse, in my opinion.
Yeah. And on that note, I'm going to contradict myself here, but I actually just watched Signs recently, and I regret not watching it for so long.
I love Signs.
I don't know why I hadn't seen it in so long, or why I hadn't seen it at all, because my co-director Daryl, he always recommended, hey, you should see this, and finally I sat down and watched it about a month ago or so, and the ending of that is so triumphant. Like, there's so much joy in the end. You feel so good after it, and it was done so well, despite all the tragedy throughout the film. And it kind of inspired me to want to create something triumphant like that in the future, and potentially change a film idea that I have down the road. So I know I want to make tragedies, but I also do want to make something triumphant like Signs.
Yeah, I do like a triumphant ending. I'm susceptible as anyone for that kind of stuff. I like a good triumph, and Signs is definitely a triumph. I like that it kind of brings it back down to a personal triumph right at the end. Like, it's a triumph for the family, and it's like, great, all that worked out. But then it just brings it dials it back in this really nice way to be just about this one man's very simple triumph as far as like what he's going to do with his life. I love that.
Exactly, yeah.
Have you seen a lot of M. Night movies? Because I feel like he kind of gets like wrongfully maligned, in my opinion. I think he's a much better filmmaker than sometimes he gets credit for.
I haven't seen a lot of M. Night. I'm sorry to say.
I would recommend The Visit.
The Visit? Okay.
Yeah,
I'll put that on my list.
That's a really good one of his that he made way after Signs, but I really like a lot. I think it's one of the best found footage movies I've ever seen. Very different tone to some of his stuff, but you still kind of feel his fingerprints on it. And just a very unusual horror. It came out at a time when horror was very, very predictable and had been for a while. And I think, people that maybe shit on M. Night a little bit, they kind of like, oh yeah, The Visit's pretty good. I'll give them that.
I think they shit on him a lot of bit.
A lot of bit. Really uncalled for.
It seems unfounded, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's one of the best filmmakers we have, and I will be remembered as such, despite random people on the internet giving him shit or intentionally mispronouncing his last name or whatever to make fun of him, which was a thing for a while. They would call him like Shamalama Ding Dong. It's so weird that was like a fucking thing. That was like an internet accepted whatever. But yeah, I'll always go out and see his films for sure.
And circling back to your question, where I stand like film wise, I feel like a nomad. Like, I don't know where to look. Like, I'm on YouTube looking for films to see. I'm on TikTok looking for films to see.
Just ask me. You know me.
I'll just ask you. Exactly. That's good advice.
Yeah, maybe the people at home can't, but you can, which you should take advantage of. You know,
Hmm.
I
I
worked
will.
at a
I will.
I worked at a video store for many, many years. It was one of the best services I provided was literally just steering people in the right direction of movies. You know, anybody can hit buttons on a computer and rent the
Yeah.
stuff to them. But if I can find some kind of choice movie that just scratches a very specific itch for them, and I've probably changed some lives over those many years when I was a video store employee, because a well-picked movie can really just be an unforgettable experience. So in that,
That's the truth.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the spirit of that, what are you in the mood for right now? Because I'll prescribe something to you right now. What are you feeling? What kind of craving do you have movie-wise?
Okay. Right now, I'm looking for creativity and artistic license, and I guess I'll reference Buffalo '66 for that. And that you actually led me to that movie yourself by talking about it a lot, and I love that film. So something along those lines, but also the film Cemetery Man, or in Italian Della Morte dell'Amore. I just love what I'm liking recently is more creative, artistic decisions being made that don't exactly show you a literal something happening like right here and now, but depicting an emotion that takes place, so to speak. Like I just watched Neon Demon recently, and that movie kind of sings to me in a different way. It's very hypnotizing. The pacing of the film is very slow, but it flows really well. But there's a lot of artistic license in there in the way the emotions are portrayed. So it's like I want something that if you were to describe an emotion, here is the emotion artistically, as opposed to here's just the person feeling the emotion. You know what I mean? So in Buffalo '66, when Christina Ricci's character, you know, obviously no spotlight actually came out, and the whole bowling alley didn't go dark. And when she started dancing, that was just what she felt internally. And I want more stuff like that.
All right. Well, that's, you know, obviously we're talking about a wonderful film here. So, and probably my favorite movie. You know, I don't know if it's literally my favorite, but it's the movie I mention if somebody asks me my favorite movie. I'll just tell them Buffalo '66. So I'm going to give you a couple of recommendations. I'm not just going
Okay,
to
yeah,
give you
hit me.
one because I don't think one is going to hit all of it, but I think we can kind of
And I
make,
know I just gave you three completely
yeah.
different films from all different sides,
Yeah.
but they all have
I
their
think we
different
can
themes.
create kind of like a three-headed hydra or something of films that you can enjoy. So one that kind of I think is kind of a must-see for you is Kim Ki-duk is one of my favorite filmmakers. I would recommend his film Moebius. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but you know, like a Moebius strip, like a I don't know what the pronunciation is, but Moebius.
Okay.
Film he made in 2013. Very strange movie. No dialogue. Okay, no
Hmm.
spoken dialogue. It's a Korean film. There's little moments where there's English writing on screen or whatever, but there's no actual spoken dialogue. So every single thing in this film, this very complex, not as in Byzantine plot, but like complex as far as emotion and family drama, everything is conveyed without the use of dialogue whatsoever. And in this way where you understand that what you're watching isn't literally reality. You're just watching these expressions. Imagine like a very dysfunctional family who every single member of it couldn't speak, and also speaking wasn't even a thing. Like we're living in a world where you can't even talk, and we have this family that's trying to deal with all these fucked up things that are going through their minds, and they can't even talk, and that's their world. That's how I would describe it. It's a stunning film. We lost Kim Ki-duk way too soon. We lost him a couple years ago. I believe he wasn't even 60 yet. He had way more films left in him, I'm sure. One of my favorite filmmakers. So that's one pick.
Beautiful, on the list.
Yes, yes, yes. Also, I would recommend. You know, I'm not going to recommend all his films because he's a very interesting and strange director. But Michael Haneke, I really like his stuff, but particularly my favorite film of his is The Seventh Continent, which is his first film, I believe. I might be wrong on that, but I think it's his first feature film. Very strange. Also, again, very strange family dynamic, tragic story about a family that decides to do something. I'll leave it at that. But Moebius and Seventh Continent. And then you're going to need something lighter. You will need something lighter after those two. I'm telling you now. How much Albert Brooks have you seen?
0. Let's
Zero.
Say.
Okay.
Yes, 0.
All right. Lost in America. Start there. I always recommend people start with Lost in America. First of all, it'll teach you about America. You know, you're Canadian. You don't know what we're doing over here.
I kind of do. Our Canadians are stupidly obsessed with what Americans are doing.
Okay, fair enough.
So I do know a lot about it, but yeah, let's continue.
Let's assume you know nothing. You're just living a strange brew-esque experience up there in Canada. Let's assume that, and if you wanted to be introduced to America in some capacity, I would recommend Lost in America.
Okay, awesome.
It's essentially a very light romantic comedy kind of road movie, but there are some just incredible moments of depth there, both comedic depth and kind of lines that always kind of make me tear up a little bit just because of how well they are said. Albert Brooks is a writer, director, actor, comedian. Really, really great stuff that he's done. And also something he does a lot, which I really enjoy, is that he'll make a scene linger for way longer than anybody else will. So like if he knows that like at 3 minutes it's funny, he knows that like if we can just bring it up to like a 6 or 7 minute scene, by the time it hits 6 or 7 minutes, it's gonna be fucking hilarious. Because you'll just break through that like awkward thing. Like I feel like around when you made like Caramel Sugar Moxie, humor was being in that way in a very like kind of annoying way. So like there would be jokes on like Family Guy or whatever where they just do the same joke for like really, really long amounts of time or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was the nuanceless version of what I'm describing. Albert Brooks will do it almost in like a Tarantino-esque way, like the opening of Inglourious Basterds or something, but for comedy. You know,
yeah.
Two people talking across a table, particularly in a scene in Lost in America that I'm kind of alluding to. Two people talking across the table can be funny. Oh man, let me get a drink of water.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Two people having a conversation. Like I said, couple minutes in, it's already funny, but let's make it uncomfortable and then let's make it funny again.
Yeah.
So he's very skilled at that. So I would recommend those 3 movies.
Amazing. I will fulfill this watch list.
I'm actually going to make this, by the way, I'm going to make this a new segment. Every episode, if I have a guest on, I'm going to try and prescribe them at least one movie that they would be in the mood for.
Cool. I love it.
But that brings us to our already ongoing segment, which as you of course know the show, you know what's coming up. It's stupid questions. Can I ask you some stupid questions?
Please do.
All right. So John Otis, your name is John Otis. That's your professional name, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so are you aware that one Sir John Harrington invented the flushing toilet?
No.
Okay.
I'm not aware.
All right, that's why they call it a John. That's why they call a toilet a John.
Okay, yeah. I never knew who the inventor was or what the connection was to that, but that was, growing up named John, there's all these, rhymes and stuff that John with nothing on or whatever, however it goes. And there's John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, and then there's you're also a toilet. So yeah, I've had that. I didn't know that's why it was John Harrington. Yeah.
John Harrington, inventor of the flushing toilet. Also, all right, your last name and your professional last name is Otis. Are you aware of Elisha Otis, inventor of the modern elevator?
Yes, actually. Because at my work, elevators have the Otis, logo on it, and even escalators have Otis on it. I don't know if he invented escalators as well, but from the same company, yes, I did. I was aware of that one.
Okay, so are you aware that your professional name roughly means toilet elevator?
I guess I have to live with it now.
I think it should go on a business card. I think it should go John Otis on one line, and then in parentheses underneath it, toilet elevator. And then underneath that, whatever you do videography-wise as well.
Okay, yes. I'll get those printed stat.
Okay. All right, next stupid question. Do you say a boot?
I don't say it. Americans have it wrong when it comes to the what the pronunciation is.
Uh-oh.
It's more like a boot is what you say when you make fun of it, but it's more like a boat.
A
It's
boat?
more like yeah.
Okay.
It's stranger. Like I kind of forced it there because I know how to say about, but it's a little, a boot is a little off. About is where it is, right, American wise.
Okay.
I think, but it's actually somewhere in between, and it is very noticeable. It's still noticeable.
All right,
but
next
a
question
boot is just the exaggeration of it.
All right, do you say sorry instead of sorry?
I don't know.
That's a Canadian thing. If you watch old episodes
I'm sorry.
of Degrassi, people are saying sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I guess you're right. I don't know.
Because we say sorry here. We put like an A in it. We're like sorry. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, it is. Yeah, I think we say sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's what I say.
Sorry. Yeah, that's that. Then we have a Canadian thing there.
Yeah.
So do you say A?
I haven't said that in a long time.
You kind of quit?
It's nothing conscious, but I've never said A. Yeah, I haven't said it in a long time.
That's a Canadian thing as well.
It is definitely a Canadian thing, and it's more of like a rural Canadian thing. There are really heavy accents when the more out of the metropolis you get, like the populated zones. So they are more pronounced, and it's a thing, but I can't recall the last time I said it.
Okay. All right. One last question. Have you seen Yoga Hosers?
Yoga Hosers. The
Kevin Smith movie set in Canada.
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
It's really good. I like it. I go to bat for it.
Yoga Hosers. Hold on. That came after Tusk, right?
Yes. I didn't like Tusk, but I like Yoga Hosers.
Oh, okay. I actually I like Tusk.
That's fine. That's fine.
But that being said, I did want to see Yoga Hosers.
It's good.
I did want to see Moose Jaws, but he never ended up producing it.
It's coming.
Yeah, it was a part of his Canadian triple, feature thing.
He loves Canada. Big fan of Canada.
Yeah, I love Kevin Smith. I went and saw an evening with Kevin Smith before, and I just love the guy's energy. And I actually saw Clerks way back in the day when it first came out. I remember being in public school seeing Clerks. So that was very strange. But
at like an assembly?
No.
All right, we're going to stop everything, kids. No math class today. We're going to find out how many dicks this lady sucked.
Yeah, no, but I was in public school, like of public school age, and I saw that movie, and I don't even know how it came across me or the friend that introduced me to it, but I saw it, and ever since, like, I've been a Kevin Smith fan, because then he made Mallrats and Chasing Amy and Dogma, obviously, and yeah, I've been I'm a Kevin Smith fan. So I haven't seen Yoga Hosers yet, but I do need to see that. Yes,
I recommend it. I'm a Kevin Smith fan as well. My first one was, I believe, Dogma. When that came out, I was like the exact right age to start watching Kevin Smith movies, and then I of course kind of made my way backwards, caught up on what I missed, and then by the time Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back came out, I was all ready for that and everything. So yeah, that was my Kevin Smith kind of lineage. All right, well, John Otis, you got to come back. Great talking to you. Anything you want to leave the listeners with? You feel free to praise me again in some capacity. We can always use those.
Yes, Cody Clarke. I will go to bat for you forever. So whatever, I don't care if anyone ever calls me a fanboy. I'm a big fan of Cody Clarke. That said, you can find me on Twitter, John Otis Films, at John Otis Films. And I will definitely come back when I get some more work done towards my next film and update you on everything and let you know what's going on.
I'm looking forward to it. And everybody at home, please watch Caramel Sugar Moxie on YouTube for free.
Please do.
Yeah,
It's on YouTube, yeah.
It needs the views. I think only me and Dan Lotz are the people in the world who have seen it. Both liked it a lot.
Yeah,
so.
and just type in
and Chloe
Caramel Sugar
Peltier
Moxie.
as well, very big fan.
Oh,
so
Chloe.
we got
I
3
love Chloe
fans.
too. She's great. Yes.
She's the best.
Both of you, yes. You guys are a great team, and I want to see Chloe in more of your films. I want to see her direct her own films. Yeah, she's great.
That's always the thing people say, by the way. Everyone's always like, why don't you put Chloe in more stuff? And Chloe's like, why don't you put Chloe in more stuff? And I'm just like, I'm just following the muse, I fit people in when they're applicable.
Yeah, when it makes sense. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. All right, John, great talking to you.
All right, great talking to you too.
Thank you all for listening. Once again, $2 per month at killthelinefilms.com. It keeps this podcast afloat. It keeps the movies we make afloat. Thank you for listening. See you soon.